in regards to the weather and also to the challenging conditions with the flooding that comes into the port. I really would like to speed up a bit for the next panel discussion and also ask the audience to stay with us, because now we are going to the startups who have also been yesterday at the pitch and who also have now the chance to talk to you about ocean impact and everything we need to do around having the ocean. So please welcome to me on stage Torsten Thiele. I have a look at him. Is he still around? He's coming in 2 minutes. Clemens Weigel from Everwave, Jakob Stensen, Tom Baycock, and last not least, Hannah Brocke. Hello. And Nova. Hello, Nova. Wonderful. So I think we need 2 chairs still from the back. Give me a second.
How's it going, buddy?
Torsten Thiele is coming, so just give me a helping hand. I need to organize a chair. Sorry.
I can stand right up here. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Super. Come, Steffen, join us.
The moderator role suits you.
Thank you. I'm just the impulse. So, Steffen, you start, and then you hand over.
Okay, so organize myself. So I'm very happy to give the opening talk to Torsten Thiele. He was already this morning on the first panel on the regulations and the opportunities. And maybe you have seen the nice slide he has shown there, a bit of a declining line for the shipping and the booming for the offshore technologies or the blue economy. And Torsten, I'm really happy to have you here on stage. You are one of the guys outside globally supporting global finance and shipping in the ocean technologies, blue economy, and having a strong voice for Germany on finance. So maybe please give a statement for the beginning, and then we go around for each startup and introduce what they are doing and getting into the opening round. And then I get organized with the chairs here. Okay?
Great. Yes, thanks very much, and really great to be with you all. And I think what I was trying to convey, and I think you all are part of it, is we're going through a real massive shift here. And we can get that shift right, and we get it right if it's about digital, it's about innovation, it's about working with nature. That's the massive opportunity. And that opportunity only exists for a very short window, because what we've done to the ocean is massive. The destruction that is ongoing, the exploitation, the pollution impacts, everything else. So we need to have a solutions-based approach to the ocean. And what we find is that there is now much more of an awareness that this solutions space is appearing, because scale before made a lot of these solutions really difficult. But now we are talking about the combination of remote sensing technologies, a much more data-driven approach that allows us to work with nature and with the abundance of nature in order to reverse the massive destruction that we have. And at the same time, to address the scale of the problem. The scale that comes from the additional capacity of stuff that we throw into the sea, that comes from the understanding. So I mentioned this morning, we have a commitment by global leaders to protecting 30% of the planet. Now, 30% on land and at sea. So 30% at sea is huge. And so only if we have the technical approaches, the scale that deals with these issues. So we want marine protected areas in those areas, but we want that done in a way that we can have operational efficiencies at the same time. We want a management system that does not replicate what we've done on land, where we have heavy bureaucracy, slow decision making, planning systems that don't work, etc. So the ocean world needs to be ahead of the game. But the problem is, when we started out in the marine world, we were the people who did things carefully. We built ships carefully, because otherwise they'll break in the sea. Everything was slow and solid. And we now need to essentially have the mentality of a software company applied to the maritime sector in a way so that it addresses ocean solutions that are biological and chemical and physical. And so it's a whole different shift of mentality and of emphasis. And it'll be thanks to people like all of these here on the stage that this challenge can be approached. So I'm really looking forward to all of you explaining how it'll be done in practice, and I'll help wherever I can. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Torsten, for the kind introduction, and that's a perfect handover also to Hannah. Very pleased that you're here on stage with Nova, and with your startup Plan Blue, you're addressing coral reefs and underwater satellites. Quite amazing yesterday. Please, what are you about to do to tackle those challenges, as Torsten just pointed out?
Yeah, Torsten, you really speak out of my heart. And I think we fit like perfectly into so. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Hannah, I'm co-founder and COO of Plan Blue. And Plan Blue builds underwater satellites, and we monitor. Oh. So we're building underwater satellites which capture high detailed seafloor data. And with this data, we want to tackle global threats such as climate change, biodiversity loss, but also pollution such as plastic waste. So maybe just a few words why the seafloor and why we think that it's really key for our global challenges we face today. So the seafloor, a healthy seafloor, is a food source and a job provider for billions of people. It's also all marine lives directly depend on the seafloor, but it's also a climate regulator. So these are big words. So one example, the seafloor captures, like a healthy seafloor captures 30 to 40 times more efficient CO2 than on land. There are really great potential there. And now the question is, if we are aware that we are so dependent on these ecosystems, why do we destroy it so much? And the answer to this is very simple. We cannot see it. And what we cannot see, we cannot manage. And this data gap is what Plan Blue wants to provide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. And as you said, Nova is there. Tom, as you're coming from Singapore, and thanks a lot for being here. And as Torsten also pointed out, we put so much waste in the oceans, but you're tackling this. And what's your perspective there from across Asia in those communities?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's a very different perspective, being on the ground in Asia to maybe looking at a more regional approach over here. I guess for us, for anyone that didn't hear the pitch yesterday, we're called 7 Clean Seas. We're an ocean cleanup organization. And really it started with a passion, quite a naive passion, to just want to clean up plastic out of the marine environment and try and fix the problem. Now, fast forward 3.5 years, a lot of information, a lot more experience, you realize that actually there are fundamental issues at play here on a systemic level that mean that you will never be able to fix a problem simply by just cleaning it up. Now, we do, of course, have cleanup projects, whether that's river cleanup, whether that's onshore cleanup and mangrove cleanup, but really we kind of came to the realization, particularly in Southeast Asia, that there are millions, billions of people in this world, and I think the most recent scientific paper I read said 2 billion people who don't have access to waste management. Now, if you don't have access to waste management, but you've got access to plastic, and ethically speaking, they should still deserve to have access to plastic because it makes our lives so much better, then actually that plastic leaking into the environment through kind of uncontrolled incineration or burning or just like land-based mismanagement, which ends up in riverine sources and in the ocean, is an inevitability. So living in a world with plastic in the oceans actually is an inevitability of the system we've built. And it comes down to a pretty core or fundamental issue, which is there are all of these communities around the world, often in rural and island locations, that have access rightly so, to plastic and all of the benefits that it brings to us in our lives, but they don't have access to suitable end-of-life solutions, whether that's just even collection in sanitary landfill. So really we wanted to tackle that, and if you're looking at that, you realize it's $1 trillion funding gap, like literally $1 trillion funding gap. And the reason waste management doesn't exist in these locations already is because it doesn't make money. So it was all about how do we find additional value. The material itself that is collected through recycling has very limited value, and it's commodity, so it's quite volatile as well. So we needed to find something else that was scalable, and that really led to the development of what we call a plastic credit. And a plastic credit is a unit that can be sold to organizations, individuals, events that have plastic footprints, necessary plastic footprints, in order for them to try and, I guess, neutralize that impact that they're generating through their operations. And what we get to do then is really work on a global scale all around the world with people who consume plastic to generate plastic credits, which essentially is just funding, which we can then channel through to Southeast Asia, South Asia, the world's most plastic polluted locations, and build recycling infrastructure and collection infrastructure in places that it's just not, it wouldn't be feasibly possible. It would be a terrible investment if you didn't have this additional value. So for us, it's about mobilizing capital from those that have it and those that really want to move towards kind of a net zero future. And I'm not talking about carbon, I'm talking about waste. Of course, plastic is part of that. And channel that impact, that money into the communities, the people that need it the most, to hopefully at least start to bridge the $1 trillion funding gap in waste management.
Okay, thanks, Knodt. Hello? Hello? Okay, good. No? Okay. Clemens, you have been the winner yesterday of our startup pitch. Congrats to that. And you're also here one of the guys here in Germany who are also collecting plastic waste. And coming from the same region like you in Aachen, you have been also quite active now in the Eifel region to collect plastic waste from the floodings due to the heavy rain, but also in Europe. So what is your approach here to go for ocean plastic and to help that problems?
Yeah, thanks first of all for the invitation and the prize. It was happy day yesterday for Everwave. I think the approach is not that far away from what we heard recently. So we are trying as well to get cleanup technologies into regions where they help to clean up rivers, lakes, and dams. We are not working in salt water because for us it's too late to tackle the problem. And the situation you were mentioning, working in Germany, was actually not planned, not at all, as the flood was not planned. But the situation was that the government just gave us a call, and they were okay. We have so much waste in the lakes in North Rhine-Westphalia that and nobody can fix it. And then we had the opportunity to help with our garbage boat Collectix to get the waste out of the water. And what we also did together with the German Research Center of Artificial Intelligence is not only cleaning up a place, but understand the waste and the material we collect, which is key for us to communicate to governments, to communicate to producers. And this is quite spectacular because you get a database for the argumentation, and the more we know, the better we can tackle the problem.
Okay. Joel, I think you're working both with 7 Clean Seas and with Everwave?
Not yet.
Not yet. So
7 Clean Seas, but that might change. We had a good conversation yesterday.
But actually you are working with projects and supporting them also globally here from Germany with your startup.
Yes, exactly. So I think what we heard earlier about scalability really also spoke to my heart. I come from the software industry originally, and when I looked at the problem, I think we observed the exact same things, right? And there's a lot of local initiatives also, in India, in Indonesia, organized by local people that are organizing waste management within their communities, but they face the exact same funding gap, and it's as a European, as a German, we have the privilege that we have access to more capital. It's you know, we can even raise venture capital with this idea. We can talk to organizations here in Germany because there's a natural bigger trust than if I would go to, I don't know, Nestle, Henkel, whoever, and say, please transfer money to an Indian community that they can do waste management. And we saw that as a massive problem, that we need to bring brands and waste management projects together. So we looked at it from a software perspective, how we can scale this approach. And in the end, what we're working on is building a, sort of say, a transaction API where we can say the projects on the ground use our technology to track and trace all the waste that they collect. We build data sets. We will be able to detect anomalies in those data sets, right? If there's fraudulent behavior or whatever. And on the other side, the brands that are investing into a plastic credit also have a guarantee that the impact that they intended is happening. And that's, in my eyes, if we speak about sustainability, the most crucial thing, because people are getting fed up with even the term sustainability. It's like everything is sustainable nowadays, but you don't understand, is the action that I'm doing as a consumer or as a brand really having the outcome that was intended, right? And this is the problem that we're trying to solve through software, through transparency, making it very data-driven.
That hands over to Jacob, and also of my understanding from Moonjelly, from your presentation yesterday, that a lot what you do is about transparency and also connecting projects and brands.
Indeed it is. So, first of all, to speak to a bit of the stuff that Torsten and the rest of the panel mentioned, it's really amazing to see us changing the paradigm from this problem focus, which is not very hopeful, into a solution focus, driving a lot more hope, and all of these great innovations coming into play, really making a difference. In the context of that, there needs to be an emphasis put on collaboration as one key thing for all of these new projects emerging to be able to work together. And also corporations and NGOs being incentivized more to work together. And another key thing is funding and finance in this industry. And that's essentially some of the areas that we're trying to touch on Moonjelly. So I'll bring you back to the 90s for just a couple of seconds, where a company would have an internet strategy. And not a lot of people would know about emails and, you know, not even the cell phone. Bring us 20, 30 years forward, and we have iPhones and a lot of other stuff. And we're repeating history a bit here. So we're standing at the final frontier when we look into blockchain and smart contracts and what that can facilitate. Will massively change the way that we govern funds, govern processes, but also financial products will emerge from this. And what we're trying to create here is really an ecosystem based on these new technological principles that would make collaboration much more efficient across projects, be able to have people from normal, one person up to institutions, be able to collaborate on different projects, share intellectual property, and be rewarded for all the actions that they are doing in this ecosystem. So a very complex structure. With regards to funding, when we look into this space, it actually creates a whole new type of source of funding that we've never seen before, which is very mind-bending in a lot of ways. So aside from these additional funds coming to fruition, it's also a much more efficient way to trace and track donations or investments. So you'll be able to see, as a donor or an investor, exactly where your money is going, exactly what impact has come out of it, where to optimize, and so on. So aside from bringing a new source of funding, it's also an ambition of ours to scale traditional funding into the ocean from the less than 1% of global annual donations that it is today, by creating the funding process, by making the funding process much more transparent and accountable. So a lot of new concepts. It's very, very interesting time to be alive with these technologies emerging. And I hope that that us on stage and many, many others will be working together on this new platform, whether it's ours or anybody else's. But this technology allows for some quantum leaps within collaboration and governance and funding.
Thanks a lot, Jacob. That hands over also to Hannah. You're also one of the startups who are, for example, with Sustainable Ocean Lines in San Francisco. So you have a good view about what's going on outside of Germany, how the market approaches. Also, of course, Tom from Singapore, been in various ecosystems also across Europe. So from your look there from the outside, what do you need as a startup to really scale and take the next steps? Beside maybe than what we have in place with crowdfunding or what some of you have done to get simply off the ground?
No, it's not on. Oh, no, yeah? No, I can't hear your voice there.
Can you hear me now? Oh yeah, that's good. So yeah, I think the situation now a bit different. So with us, like we're really a company who wants to create a turnover, and we're at some stage we will be not dependent anymore on investments. At the moment, however, we're still in the development phase, and also when we later scale and we want to become a global software and data company, of course you you need an investment to initiate the ball rolling. With regard to investments is of course very important, and also impact investment where people or VCs or even business angels focus on sustainability. Because, for instance, our company, we were really attractive to oil and gas. So we really have to have our ethic codes straight, and also, of course, the investors with us, who are with us in the boat.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, to add on to that, I mean, I can bring an Asian perspective to this. So in Asia, whether it's Indonesia, Vietnam, obviously Singapore has a lot as well. We see lots of incubators popping up, and there are some great initiatives and really creative solutions coming out of Asia at the moment, from communities that maybe we wouldn't necessarily assume fantastic tech solutions or strategic solutions coming out of. And whilst there is this very strong incubation kind of ecosystem now developed within Asia, I think one of the biggest difficulties for the market in general is how do you take a step from a post-incubated business or social enterprise to VC funding or venture funding. And there seems to be a massive disconnect. There's a cavern of difference. How do you get from what is a small idea that's been incubated and could potentially turn into something really fruitful with the correct investors on board? And I think, at least over there, having early stage investment, very early stage investment is something that's quite difficult to come by. So everybody, including the incubators, are scratching their head in like, what do we do with these great businesses that are ready to go? Because, they need, a lot of the tech solutions, for example, will need considerable funding to get going, but they're not going to get the funding because they're not quite there yet. So you end up with this funding gap essentially, and I'd say that is the biggest challenge, because there are a lot of very good solutions for sustainability and for this world that are probably falling down simply because of this issue.
Okay, so if I look at all of you, I recognize that all of you are dealing somehow with data, so you're collecting information. And on the other hand, also working on business models based on tokens or cryptocurrencies or whatever that is. So quite an interesting area where data comes into play. So how do you perceive your opportunities in the blue economy based on this backbone, on really essential technologies in that domain? Okay.
Yeah, with Plan Blue, it's that we want to enable a sustainable use of the ocean. So we want to provide the data to really initiate something, like, because in many, like in our sector, for instance, if you think about aquaculture, so the EU is actually investing quite a lot in aquaculture because they know that the demand for food will increase over time with the population growth. But on the other hand, it's like a really big polluter of the ocean. So how do you deal with that? At the moment, you can't because you don't have like a standardized monitoring technology. So you cannot establish guidelines, you cannot implement it into the law. We need something where we can say, okay, this is allowed in 300 meters, this is allowed in 500 meters or in 1,000. And then you have to see, and you need to have other innovations, and they are already out there. But you need to implement these laws to enable a sustainable use.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what we see now with the plastic credit market developing in this tokenization, etc., is kind of a first step, because the big opportunity in my eyes is not plastic neutrality or plastic credits. It is an opportunity, don't get me wrong, but the big opportunity is the circular economy, and this is where we need to get right. And getting or building these networks of collection companies is actually setting kind of the base for exactly that circular economy, because the issue of recycling companies or in general of circularity is how do I get my material back? Like we can all agree that it does not belong in the ocean, right? I think that's, funny enough, not even that is a bottom line where we can agree on. We get attacked on LinkedIn by some plastic lobby who's like, plastic is only 1% of the waste. What you're doing is complete. It's completely weird, but so plastic needs to re-enter the circular economy, right? But what needs to happen for that is that material is channeled efficiently back into these channels. And if we look at the situation in South and Southeast Asia, we have this extremely segmented market with hundreds of tiny collection points, and the big recyclers don't get access to that feedstock, right? And so this kind of needs to also come together, and then you can really shift to a circular economy, and that's what we need to keep in mind. It's not just about what we do today, but what is the...
Okay, good.
Yeah, to add on to, I mean, circular economy it's the holy grail of humanity on all fronts, really. When we're consuming, we need to be consuming in circular ways that is not degenerating whatever it is that we're consuming or how we're consuming it. But in our world of plastic waste, well, plastic and waste and tangible consumerism, like, you've got so many people out there at the moment saying, no, stop cleaning up, we have to turn the tap off, we have to design for circularity, we've got to make sure the materials are circular and easy to recycle, and they're absolutely correct. But the thing that I want to highlight here is that what nobody's talking about is that you could have the most circular product in the world. It could be the most easily recyclable material, it could be designed perfectly with no additives or colors, but a circular product in an area without waste management is a linear product, and it will become waste. So you cannot simply take this top-down approach, and we must have a simultaneous bottom-up investment into infrastructure, because if we don't have the infrastructure, then we don't have the then we don't have circularity. Period.
Okay. Sorry. Clemens, you also, I think, working with corporates in the area of waste management and bringing things together. So what can, for example, if you look for Germany with our waste management and so forth, can bring also in those countries who is not maybe so developed with those technologies?
Actually, I think we first have to realize that we are in a really good spot in Germany and in Central Europe as well. I mean, we have been working in, for example, in Bosnia or in Serbia. There is no infrastructure at all, and it's Europe still. So, yeah, I think this is a super tough one, because it is kind of a cultural thing, and it's kind of a structural thing, and if this takes time. And what we experience right now is that the market and what Joel is talking about is fast growing, but we are already talking about regulations, and this is something we see critical because it's kind of stopping the development, and I think we should realize that all what we do right now, all sitting here on the panel, was never done before. So just to mention that, give the projects time, give them the opportunity to make mistakes, and learn from it all together. That's
Thanks a lot. Jacob, in respect of we are going for 5, and I think some of you are heading for a train. So if you're in a hurry, please don't hesitate.
It was really nice to be here, but
yeah, me as well.
Okay.
sorry.
So otherwise, then maybe the last word to Jacob in your regards
very much.
from your perspective. What is the biggest challenge you gain here, also from European level? Clemens, just Joel, for the upcoming works on European level to bring your technology forward and to bring your startup to scale?
That would be the legal structures, definitely. It's hard to comply legally to structures that are not existent. So definitely, being in a space so early that there's no guides, there are no guidelines, nobody knows how to comply. It's very, very tricky, and you have to mitigate the risk of legislation being made in the future that will basically shut down your ambitions. Another huge task is communicating new concepts and technology before you actually start communicating what your project will do. So there's a lot in communication that also needs to be made.
Yeah, I would like to say something once more, because you just mentioned that we are now in the in the SOA, like Sustainable Ocean Alliance. I think there are many networks where we can really cause a momentum to raise awareness and also join forces together. And I think this is also really important, that also even when people work all together with plastics, that they don't see how that they compete for the little funding there is, but that we can see what we can do together. And there's just a wonderful approach. You know, all the Green Deal, and it's not so ocean focused, but there's no, and it's really new, and it also invites for input. It's called Blue New Deal, and it's global. And I think those approaches are really powerful, and they show already that on an international level there's a lot of momentum. And I'm really sure that we will see now, I mean, we know, and now I speak from my scientific background as a PhD and postdoc, there's so many degradation going on. There's so many ecosystems destroyed. If we once understand that when we restore those ecosystems, we gain a lot more, there will be money and there will be funding coming that way. I'm very sure about it. Now we just have to survive until then.
but I would like to pick up on that, because also we are quite happy that the seadevcon is part of the Ocean Decade program, that we are in there. And of course also there's a lot of going on in the upcoming decade for sustainability. And one of the initiatives is also the 1,000 Ocean Startups program in that context. And it is amazing, but what I still miss there is German visibility and any vehicle that is simply connecting to that. So my question is some of you engaging in those programs, SOA is involved there, and others, and how could we be there from Germany more visible?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many programs that you can be involved with. SOA is just one of many, many, many different ones. We're involved with the International Plastics Action Force, I think, or Pact, sorry, for Indonesia, which is a government-led kind of group of organizations all working towards kind of eliminating plastic leakage in Indonesia, which is the second highest leakage in the world. But we've been on 2 different United Nations incubators. There are the United Nations, there's the European Union, there's the Asia Development Bank do a lot of work in this space as well as the World Bank. And then there's just so many startups in the same space as SOA that are looking at this as a business opportunity, as an accelerator, whether that's the incubation network, Second Muse. So one thing that, you know, we've not come across overseas, or at least in Southeast Asia, is any German equivalents. I'm sure they do exist here. I've been very kindly hosted on this trip by Hamburg Invest, and you know, we got to visit Impact Hub Hamburg this morning. So how do we then how do you export that knowledge and that expertise overseas, I guess, is the question.
Very good closing remark. And also my colleagues are ramping up at the back. Thanks a lot for being with us until the end of this session. Also thanks for you, Hannah, Nova, ganz lieben herzlichen Dank. Hat mich sehr gefreut, euch beide hier zu haben. Thanks a lot, and hope that we get this topic on stage next time again on seadevcon, and even have more time to talk about this, hopefully with sun in our back. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks a lot for
you very
coming from
much.
that way.
It was a pleasure.